Please welcome this week's special guest, John. So, Rachel, what is John to you?
This is John. He comes to Countdown every single day and presents me with a freshly baked cake.
Ricky, what is John to you?
This is John. If he hadn't decided to join my band, he could have been in the Beatles.
And finally, Lee, what's your relationship with John?
This is John. After my mate John was involved in an accident, I went to visit him in hospital, but I mistakenly sat next to this John's bed and spoke to him for 2 hours.
David Stephen.
OK. Rachel, he brings a cake every day.
Yep.
What sorts of cakes?
Well, last week it was carrot cake, because that's my favourite.
So sometimes he deliberately doesn't make your favourite cake to show displeasure at your maths.
There's one he did, it looked like red velvet, but it was with beetroot. That was really good. And I think it was the Victoria sponge.
John looks gutted.
How many cakes?
Of course he's
would you
gutted, he was
say?
almost in the Beatles!
How many cakes would you say he's given you?
237.
237 cakes.
Do you get someone to have a little peck before in case he's poisoned them?
Oh, no, because
Carol Vorderman.
he comes...
So John comes and sits in the studio audience with the cake, and who collects the cake from him?
We always have a chat at the top of the show. We've got a warm-up guy and you go and say hi and he's there every time, so it's just...
I'm interested to hear that Countdown has a warm-up guy, because, I mean, that audience really is buzzing.
We have a very loyal audience.
What does John... Do you know anything about his life?
Well, he likes Countdown.
So even though he's brought you 237 cakes, you've
Well, we
never
don't-
asked him anything about his life?
That's showbiz.
Can I see John's baking hands, or is he not allowed to move?
You can have a look if you want, Josh.
Yeah. Well, right. I can check if they're musicians' hands as well while I'm up here.
Exactly. Yeah.
What is it you're looking for there, Josh?
Just like flour under the nails. Those aren't the fingers of a guitar player.
Right.
Because they haven't got any hard ends on them.
Which is the exact phrase Paul McCartney used when he's acting.
Exactly.
What is the worst cake John has ever cooked you?
He doesn't do bad cakes.
No, but there's still, even
yeah.
even among 237 excellent cakes, there still has to be a worst.
You didn't get that voiceover for Greg's, did you?
All right, David.
OK, we'll move on to Ricky. I'm not an expert on music, so I feel...
You've heard of the Beatles, though.
I have heard of the Beatles. So how did you manage to spoil John's chances of being in the Beatles?
Well, I had a little band in Liverpool I used to go round, and one of my mates in my band spotted him and said, I've seen this fella, he's great, and we poached him.
What do he play? What instrument?
Piano.
Piano.
Piano?
Piano.
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 So,
So who's the pianist in the Beatles instead of him?
So, did you poach him directly from the Beatles?
no.
He was never in the Beatles.
No.
Well, how do you know he would have been in the Beatles?
Because the band that he was in went on to become the Beatles.
What were they called?
First of all, it was the Quarrymen, then the Silver Beatles, and then the Beatles.
So, I read the book about the Beatles. What's his surname?
John DeFlo.
John DeFlo?
Yeah.
OK, you know a lot about
don't
this.
quite-
OK, ask the forensic question.
OK, when John was in the whatever incarnation of the Beatles, who else was in it at the time?
I think it was Pete Best,
Yeah.
Paul, John, and John Lennon,
Matthew, Mark.
Luke.
John joined your band, Ricky.
Yeah.
What was your band called?
The City Slickers.
And did it go well for the City Slickers?
I think John
Compared
was
to
a
the
little bit...
Beatles, which would you say
I
went
think John was a bit too good for us, and he didn't drink as much as us, so he got off.
Did he resent that you'd taken him out of the Beatles?
No, I think the hate mail is just part of the game.
David, what about Lee? Remind us of yours, Lee.
OK, so this is John. After my mate John had been involved in an accident, I went to visit my mate John, but mistakenly sat next to this John's bed and spoke to him for 2 hours.
Why didn't you realise it was a different John?
Because this John had some bad injuries, and as a result, his jaw was all wired up. He had a bandage over his eye, and the bit that was left was a very, very black eye, lots of grazes and scabs around his head.
And you thought, my God, that must have been a tough appendicitis operation.
Well, I never said my mate John had an appendicitis.
No, what had happened to your mate John?
So my mate John, he'd been involved in a sledging accident. He's my neighbour, and someone had phoned me and said, John's in hospital, he's had a bad sledging accident.
How had the accident happened?
It's a weird one. You know, sometimes people go to hospital and they're all right, but then they go downhill very quickly. Complete reverse.
So you arrive at the hospital.
Yeah.
And do you know what ward John is in?
No, I don't know what ward he's in, because I've just raced straight there. Asked his name, they sent me up to the 3rd floor. I went into there's like a mini reception then, and I said, I'm looking for John, the guy involved in the sledging accident.
You didn't think to use the surname of John once you got to the mini reception?
By this time, I was panicked.
So you're very emotionally close to your next-door neighbour.
I'm very fond of my neighbour John.
So
yeah.
you're really, the process of going to the hospital, you're panicking. Oh, my God, is he all right? Is he all right? I can't remember his surname.
No, because John, my mate John lives on his own, and I'm not going for sympathy.
He lives on his own. Occasionally, he goes sledging on his own. He's a loner.
He was out.
A very active, Christmassy loner.
He was out with his grandchildren.
So you got to the mini reception.
Yeah.
What did you say to the nurse?
I'm looking for John, the sledging accident, and this woman English wasn't her first language. She sort of said something quickly, like pointed end to the right. So I rush up, and I'm sat in this sort of, private room just with his bed, and I'm saying to him, I'm so sorry. Joe, first of all, where are the grandkids? Do you want me to sort anything out? And he went, oh. Which I now know to be, I think you've got the wrong person.
When did you discover that this John wasn't your John?
When I started to realise something wasn't right was when in his state he still managed to mime and go, That was the bit I thought, something's not right here. And then as I was thinking, a nurse came in and I said, can I just check? This is John, who's been involved in the sledging accident. And she said, no. And I said, well, when I asked you, you said to,
It was the same one as the one on the reception desk.
This is the bit that you're not going to believe.
Yeah.
It turns out this woman, whose language wasn't first language English, turns out his surname is Ledging. And thought that I'd said John Ledging accident.
Is your next-door neighbour's surname Ladder, by any chance?
Don't be facetious, you know it's not.
Yeah.
That's my stepson's name.
All right, we need an answer. So, David's team, is John Rachel's baking buddy, Ricky's musical mate, or Lee's poorly patient?
It's not Lee, is it?
We don't think it's Lee. I think Ray thinks it might be Ricky.
Yeah.
You think it might be
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it could be Ricky. John, show us your fingers
You
again.
hold your hands up, thank you.
Yeah, they look like pianist fingers to me.
Good for baking.
That is exactly as he was lying when I went. There was metal rods underneath that.
I think if Rachel was telling the truth, she'd have known more about his life.
Yeah, 'cause
she knew
she's a
very
nice
little.
girl, she'd want
Yeah,
to-
she'd know at least, about his life at all.
You are
Yeah.
quite bright, actually.
I think it might be Rachel.
I don't think it's Rachel, but...
OK, and you don't... You both think it's Ricky,
I've got
don't
to
you?
go with Ricky, I think, yeah.
OK, well, I think we're going to say it's Ricky. It's telling
OK,
the truth.
right. John, would you please reveal your true identity?
My name's John. I could have been in the Beatles, but I left to join Ricky's band.
Yes, John is Ricky's musical mate. Thank you, John.
Nice to see you, Kev.
Oh, my God.
How are you, my friend?
Great to see you.
Lovely. And is this 50 years?